So in this section, we are going to be discussing about some other viral infections. So the two most important diseases that we will be focusing on are is the mumps, and the second one is the intestinal viral infections. That is because of the rotavirus infection. So in these diseases, we will be discussing about their epidemiology, in which areas they are present, which population is most commonly affected with this specific type of virus, their pathology, what type of events usually occurs, what cascade of events occur inside the person's body once that virus has entered inside the body, and which cell is usually necrosed, which area is most affected, and then finally what are the clinical signs and symptoms of the disease, how it manifests, how it presents, and how we differentiate it from the other diseases. So starting our section with the mumps. A paramoxovirus, an enveloped single-stranded RNA virus, causes an acute, self-limiting systemic illness characterized by, now this is important, parotid gland swelling and meningiocephalitis. Now, mumps is basically a paramoxovirus, the type of virus that basically is leading to the disease, and it is a single-stranded RNA virus, and basically causes an acute self-limiting systemic illness. Now this point here is important. It leads to a systemic illness, and what is it is characterized of the parotid gland swelling and also meningiocephalitis. Over here in this diagram you can see this child over this area. On the left side of his face, he has parotid gland swelling. The parotid gland swelling can be unilateral, it can be bilateral, it depends. Okay, coming towards the epidemiology, worldwide disease, primarily in the children, spread via the respiratory route, the same mechanism. The virus is highly contagious, and 90% of the exposed susceptible persons become infected, and 60% develops the symptoms. Okay, now because it is very highly contagious, usually 90% of the persons who get exposed to the disease usually are infected, and the symptoms develop in 65% of the cases. The other cases are saved because of their good immunity, good immune responses towards these type of diseases, or it can be because they were immunized previously. Okay, now live attenuated mump vaccine usually prevents the mumps, and disease largely is eliminated in the most developed countries as well because of this vaccine that is usually given to the children. Now, pathology begins as the viral infection of the respiratory tract epithelium. Now, the infection or the process of the disease usually starts when with the inhalation of the virus, that is from the respiratory system, and disseminates through the blood and the lymphatic system. The mechanism is much more same as that of the measles. Measles was also getting its the virus was getting its roots into the blood system and then affecting the lymphatics as well. So the same is happening over here. Dissemination usually occurs in different type of tissues, or you can say glands inside the body. The first one and the foremost, which is also showing different clinical signs and symptoms, is the salivary gland, especially out of the salivary glands, the parotid gland. Then we have central nervous system, pancreas, and finally the testes. Now, what is the manifestation of the disease? It involves the central nervous system with symptomatic disease in 10% of the patients. Then we have epididymocritis occurs in 20% of the males over the age of puberty. The epididymocritis is basically the enlargement of the testes to the double or the triple of the size because of the mumps. Now, in the pathology, it causes necrosis of the infected cells, eliciting a predominantly lymphocytic inflammatory infiltrates. Affected salivary glands are swollen. This is basically the symptom, or you can see visually this clinical feature of the mumps on the infected person's face. Ducts lined by necrotic epithelium and their interstitium infiltrated with leukocytes. Okay, now this slide is basically telling us that there is the necrosis of the tissue, and that necrosis is basically causing the lymphocytic inflammatory cells to infiltrate over that specific area and to cause the inflammatory reaction. Okay, and other features are that epididymocritus, the testes swell to 3 times the normal size. We have discussed it in the previous slide. The swelling of the testicular parenchyma confined within the tuna albigina produces focal infarcts. Now, this is important over here. And mumps orchestrates it's usually unilateral and thus rarely causes sterility. Now there is it damages the testicular parenchyma and leads to the necrosis of the cells, and this is dangerous. Whenever mumps are found in the case of males and they are over the age of puberty, they are considered dangerous because there is inflammation of testes, but that inflammation is usually unilateral, it is not bilateral, and it usually is treated when the disease is treated. So it never causes sterility, so it's not dangerous up to that level. Okay, now coming towards the clinical features of mumps. The first is the fever, malaise, that is the weakness. Then we have painful swelling of the salivary gland because it is swollen to a very larger extent. Then we have symptomatic meningeal involvement that we discussed in the first slide. Then we have headache, that is because of the meningeal involvement. Stiff neck, that is because of the meningeal involvement. These are basically the sign symptoms of the meningeal involvement in a child. Then we have vomiting, same because of the meningeal involvement. So these are all the sign and symptoms, and some of these are written over here of the mumps. Now coming towards the intestinal viral infections, the first, the infection, the only one that we are going to discuss is the rotavirus infection. Rotavirus produces profuse watery diarrhea that can lead to dehydration and death if untreated. That is because of the hypovolemic shock. Okay. If you can recall from the first section of the lecture, we discussed about the rotavirus as an example, that how it causes certain signs and symptoms. It basically affects the enterocytes, that are the cells that leads to the absorption of the materials from the intestine, and those infected enterocytes, they are unable to produce certain proteins that are responsible and are important in the reabsorption process or the absorption process, so they lead to profuse or the watery diarrhea in the person. Okay, now 5 species from A to E, that is A, B, C, D, E, are usually found, and they are double-stranded RNA members of the family Rheovidae. Type A is the most common, usually infects the young children. Now, if you can recall all of the other viruses that we have discussed, this virus is different from them in one way, that they all were single-stranded RNA virus, and this one is the double-stranded RNA virus. Okay, now coming towards the epidemiology, spread by the oral fecal route and most common among children who shed huge amounts of virus in the stools. Now, whenever the virus, it is usually present in the gut because we are discussing about the intestinal virus. So the child who is infected by this virus will shed large amounts of viruses in their stool. So usually stool tests are done to confirm the presence of the rotavirus. Peak age of infection is 6 months to 2 years. This is important. Children infected by the age of 4 years, they can be. And in US, each year rotavirus causes 100 deaths in young children. It is very dangerous. Now, because of that profuse diarrhea and profuse vomiting, the fluids and the electrolytes and the water from the body is lost, and because of that the child goes into hypovolemia, and because of that hypovolemic shock, he or she can die. Throughout the world, 500,000 deaths in children usually under the 5 years of age are usually reported. Now, these are the statistics that are given by the WHO. Okay, now coming towards the pathophysiology, that what is basically the pathological process that is taking place inside the person's body. It infects the enterocytes, we have discussed before, of the upper small intestine, disrupting absorption of sugar, fat, and various ions that basically causes the person and deprivation of the necessary ions or electrolytes that are required by the child's body. Then osmotic load causes a net loss of fluid into the bowel lumen, producing diarrhea and dehydration. Infected cells are shed from the intestinal villi, and the regenerating epithelium initially lacks full absorptive capabilities. Now, this is the whole pathophysiological process that it starts with the infection getting into the stomach or the gut, infecting the enterocytes and disrupting the ability of enterocytes to absorb the sugar, the fats, the important ions that are required for the normal functioning of the child's body. And the osmotic load occurs, that is the loss of profuse amount of fluids from the body, and that is because the infected shed of intestinal villi. Villi basically increases the surface area of the intestines and increases the absorption from them. Okay, pathological changes in rotavirus infection are largely confined to the duodenum and jejunum. These two areas that are the part of the upper intestinal tract are usually affected. The intestinal villi are shortened, and there is a mild infiltrate of neutrophils and lymphocytes. Okay, now this diagram is basically showing us a quick review of the rotavirus. It is telling us that rotavirus is a contagious virus that can cause gastroenteritis, that is the inflammation of the stomach and the intestines. Then the infants and the young children are most commonly infected, and the common age in which the children are more susceptible to the disease, it is from 6 to 24 months of age. And in complications, we can see dehydration, hypovolemia, and hospitalizations. And causes 2 million people are hospitalized annually worldwide because of this rotavirus. Then in the clinical signs and symptoms, we have severe watery diarrhea, that is the profuse diarrhea, vomiting, fever, abdominal pain, and transmission is through the oral fecal route and enters mouth by the feces contaminated hand surfaces or the objects. So in order to prevent these type of diseases, proper hand washing is very important. Okay, coming towards the clinical features, the first one is the vomiting. Vomiting lasts for 2 to 3 days, but diarrhea continues for 5 to 8 days. Then comes fever. We have abdominal pain because of the diarrhea, because of the abdominal involvement. Then profuse watery diarrhea. Okay. Now in this section, we have discussed about two major diseases. The first one was the mumps. That is the inflammation of the parotid gland mainly. So it shows as an enlargement of the parotid gland. And then the second disease that we have discussed in this section is the intestinal disease, that is caused by the rotavirus infection and is accompanied by the profuse watery diarrhea, and if not controlled can lead to death as well. So this was all from this section. Thanks for watching Scardia.com.